In a quiet village called Evergreen, there was a legend that had been passed down for generations. It spoke of a hidden secret within the heart of the forest that surrounded the village. The elders often warned the children to never venture too deep, as it was said that the forest had a way of protecting its secrets. Susan, a curious young girl, had always felt an urge to uncover what lay hidden within. She'd heard the stories, and they sparked her imagination, but no one had ever dared to search for the secret. One day, Susan decided it was time. She packed a small bag with some food, water, and a map of the forest that her grandmother had handed down. With a heart full of hope and excitement, she told her parents she would be back by sunset. They warned her again to be careful, but Susan was determined. As she stepped into the forest, the towering trees seemed to whisper as if they were alive, watching her every move. As Susan walked deeper into the forest, the path began to narrow and twist. The sunlight barely broke through the thick canopy above, casting a greenish glow over the moss-covered ground. She could feel the air growing cooler, and a sense of quiet filled the space around her. The further she went, the less familiar the forest seemed. She had visited before, but never this deep. It was as if the forest itself had changed, and she was no longer on the path that anyone had walked before. Her heart raced with both excitement and fear. She had always believed that the forest was a living, breathing entity, and now, as she ventured deeper, it felt as though the trees were guiding her toward something. But what? She stopped for a moment, glancing at her map, but its lines were blurry and seemed to make no sense. The forest had its own way of making people forget what they knew. Suddenly, Susan heard a faint whisper carried on the wind. At first, she thought it was just the rustling of leaves, but as she listened closely, the voice sounded more distinct, like it was calling her name. "Susan." The voice whispered again, soft and clear. She spun around, her heart pounding, but no one was there. The forest, though dense, was eerily still. Unsure if she had imagined the voice, Susan continued walking, but now with more caution. The whisper seemed to follow her, growing louder with each step, until she found herself standing before a large, twisted tree that seemed older than any she had ever seen. Its bark was dark and smooth, and the roots spread out like arms, reaching toward the ground. She could feel a strange pull, almost as if the tree were beckoning her closer. Susan slowly approached the ancient tree. As she reached out to touch its bark, a strange warmth radiated from it, and the ground beneath her feet trembled slightly. She gasped and stepped back, her heart racing. The tree began to creak, and the air around her felt charged with energy. Then, without warning, a hollow sound echoed from within the tree, and a hidden door appeared at its base. Susan could hardly believe her eyes. A secret door was hidden in the tree for who knows how long. She hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should open it, but the whisper called to her again, urging her forward. With a deep breath, Susan reached for the door handle, her hands trembling with anticipation. She had come this far, and she couldn't turn back now. As the door creaked open, Susan stepped into a dark, narrow passageway. The walls were made of thick roots, twisting and turning like veins through the earth. The air smelled damp, and a soft glow emanated from somewhere deep within, guiding her forward. She felt as if she was stepping into another world entirely, one that had been hidden for centuries. The forest's secret, she realized, was much older and much more mysterious than she had ever imagined. With each step, the passage seemed to stretch on forever. Susan's mind raced with questions. What was this place? Who built it? And why had it remained hidden for so long? The further she went, the more it felt like the forest itself was alive, watching her every move. She wasn't sure if it was the forest's magic or just her imagination, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being tested. The passage opened into a vast underground chamber. The walls were covered in ancient carvings that depicted strange creatures and scenes of nature intertwined with humans. The glow she had seen earlier came from glowing crystals embedded in the walls, casting an ethereal light across the room. In the center of the chamber was a stone pedestal, and atop it lay a small, ornate box. Susan approached the pedestal slowly, feeling both awe and fear. She could sense that the box was important, but what was it? Was this the secret the forest had kept for so long? Her hands trembled as she reached for the box, and as soon as she touched it, the room seemed to shudder, and the crystal's glow intensified. She quickly pulled her hand back, unsure of what she had just triggered. Before Susan could make sense of what was happening, a figure materialized before her. It was a tall, shadowy figure, draped in flowing robes made of leaves and vines. The figure's eyes glowed like the crystals in the chamber, and its presence was both comforting and intimidating. "You have found it," the figure said, its voice deep and echoing through the chamber. "The secret the forest has kept for 100 years. Susan stood frozen in place, not knowing whether to speak or run. "Who are you?" she finally managed to ask. The figure smiled softly, though its face remained hidden beneath its hood. "I am the guardian of the forest," it explained. "It is my duty to protect the balance between nature and the human world. You have come because you are ready to understand the secret. But first, you must learn what the forest truly is." The guardian began to explain the true nature of the forest. It was not just a collection of trees and animals, but a living, breathing entity, connected to all things in the world. The forest had watched over the land for centuries, ensuring that nature's balance was never disturbed. The secret it held was not a treasure, but a lesson, one that could change the way humans viewed the world. "The forest has always been here," the guardian said. "It has witnessed countless generations, each leaving its mark on the land. But it is not the forest that needs saving. It is humanity that must learn to respect the balance. Only then will the forest reveal its true power." Susan listened intently, absorbing every word. The forest wasn't hiding a physical treasure, it was guarding wisdom. The guardian gave Susan a task: to truly understand the forest's secret, you must prove your wisdom. You must make a choice between two paths. One will take you back to the village, and the other will lead you deeper into the unknown. Choose wisely, for only one path will lead you to the answer you seek. Susan was stunned. How could she choose? The path to the village meant safety and returning to everything she knew. But the path deeper into the forest, that held the promise of discovery. She thought carefully, weighing the options. It wasn't about finding treasure or fame, it was about the journey and the lessons she had already learned along the way. With a deep breath, Susan chose the path that led deeper into the forest. She knew it wasn't an easy choice, but she felt an inner calling to learn more, to understand the forest and its mysteries. The path was more difficult than she expected, winding through thick underbrush and over steep hills. But she pressed on, determined to see where it led. As she walked, Susan realized that the forest was teaching her something she had never expected. Each step felt like a lesson in patience, in resilience, and in the value of taking the road less traveled. The forest wasn't just a place, it was a teacher, guiding her with every step, challenging her to grow. Finally, after what felt like days, Susan arrived at the heart of the forest. It was a breathtaking sight, an open clearing with a small, crystal-clear pond in the center. The air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers, and the trees here were unlike any she had seen before. Their trunks were golden, their leaves shimmering like silver. This, she realized, was the heart of the forest, where its power and wisdom converged. As she stood there, taking in the beauty around her, Susan felt a deep sense of peace. The forest had been waiting for her to arrive, to understand its true nature. The secret wasn't hidden in a box or an ancient artifact, it was within her all along. The forest's power lay in its ability to connect all living things and in its timeless wisdom. Susan returned to the village, her heart full of newfound knowledge. She didn't speak much of her journey, for she knew that the wisdom she had gained couldn't be shared through words alone. It had to be felt, understood, and experienced. But the villagers noticed a change in her. She had become more connected to nature, more aware of the balance between all living things. Her once carefree spirit had matured, and she understood the importance of protecting the environment. The forest was no longer just a mysterious place to her, it was a living, breathing force that deserved respect. She had discovered the forest's secret, and in doing so, she had unlocked her own deeper understanding of the world. The years passed, and Susan grew into a wise young woman. She often visited the forest, not in search of treasure or adventure, but to learn more, to give back to the land that had given so much to her. The trees no longer whispered in fear, but in gratitude, as if they recognized her efforts to protect and preserve the balance. One day, as Susan walked through the forest, the guardian appeared once more. "You have learned the secret," the guardian said, "and you have shared it with others. The forest is proud of you. Susan smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She had come to understand that the greatest treasure of all was the knowledge and wisdom passed down through generations, and the responsibility to protect it. As Susan grew older, she became known as the keeper of the forest. She taught the villagers the importance of living in harmony with nature, of listening to the whispers of the trees and the songs of the birds. She passed down the lessons she had learned to her children and grandchildren, ensuring that the forest's secret would live on for generations. The forest, once a place of mystery and danger, had become a sanctuary for the village. The villagers now understood that it wasn't a place to fear, but a place to cherish and protect. The forest's legacy had been passed on, and its secret was no longer hidden. It was a part of the village's way of life. The forest's secret had been revealed not through treasure or discovery, but through wisdom, patience, and respect. Susan's journey had taught her that sometimes the greatest discoveries are not the ones we find, but the ones we learn along the way. The true treasure was the connection between all living things and the understanding that nature, in all its forms, deserves our care and protection. And so, the forest's secret remained, not as something hidden, but as a living lesson for all who were willing to listen and learn.